Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. And here we are back at Forster again with the guys and girls from ABT for the second Forster round in 1 week. Anyway, it's another great episode with quite a bit in it. We've got new competitors, we've got previous winners, we've got new winners. It's got a whole lot of everything. We've got Battle of the Marks in terms of the AOY race for the ABT. Anyway, it's a great episode. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I'm going to roll the intros and I'll tell you all about it. Here we go.
Welcome to the Bream Fishing Project. This is where you need to be every Tuesday to find out all the latest tips and tricks to help you target bream on lures. You'll get to hear from some of Australia's elite bream competition anglers and see how they were able to achieve their results in competitions around the country. Now, here is your host, the 2019 Hobie Kayak Fishing World Champion, Andrew Deeth.
All right, so there's a couple of cool things about this round. So as we know, they've done the two Forster rounds. Now, they got smashed in the first 2 days, I think on the Wednesday and Thursday of Forster 1. And then the weather started to fine up to quite calm conditions, although muddy water on the last couple of days. Now, I've just done all the interviews for this one leading into doing these intros and outros. I got to tell you, there's some cool stories and a few different techniques of catching fish. I do like the fact that now coming into the Tweed River, we've got both Mark Crompton and Mark Healey, both in the running for AOY for this year. So it's come all the way down to one competition. I don't think you can get any better than that. Before we get into the stats and what have you for this competition, I just want to remind you that the collective's a thing that's out there, that if you want to contribute to the Bream Fishing Project in general, you don't have to come along to the collective, but if you just want to kind of say thank you, then sign up. It's $15 a month at the moment, and that would be appreciated. If you want to come along and get a little bit more, we've got challenges going on. We've been having great Zoom meetings with multiple contributors. Been very, very cool. So if that's something you're interested in, head across to brimfishingproject.supercast.com and get yourself signed up. And then if it's not for you, just cancel it. It's all good. Anyway, let's move on. So for this one, as this week went on, the fish activity wheel just got a bit better. So on the Saturday, we had 55 with a major bite period at 7:10 through to 9:40. High tide was at 5:34 through to at 1.24 meters. Low tide at 11:41 a.m. at 0.41. As we know in Forster, the tides are always a little bit later than that, so by a couple of hours. So the tide was probably only just turning or just thinking about turning when they kicked off. On the Sunday, 65 in the fish activity wheel, major bite period at 7:52 through to 10:22. High tide was at 6:19 a.m. at 1.22. Running down to a low tide at 12:16 p.m. at 0.4 of a meter. All right, we've got 6 interviews. Here we go. Okay, so first up in third place, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 1.29 on the Saturday, backing it up with a slightly better bag on the Sunday of 3 fish for 1.425, giving him a total of 2.715. And third place, I've got Reid. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, happy to be a part of it. Or a pretty consistent listener to the show, so really happy to be on here.
Oh, very good, mate. We're happy to have you aboard. And yeah, you're kind of new to the competition series or the ABT, so yeah, we definitely want to dive into that. And maybe that's a good starting point. I think you said this is your first ABTs. You did Forster 1. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your experience there?
Yeah, so the first comp was very different to the second. The weather conditions were drastically different, so it was pretty rough out there for the first comp. There was a lot of drowned rats coming back to the boat ramp. But as far as being a newbie to the ABT goes, it was actually a really great opportunity to see how 4 really great anglers approach the different conditions and obviously approached an arena that got increasingly pressured over the 6 days. So, yeah, it felt more like a marathon than 2 distinct comps, but it was good.
How did you feel? Like you would have probably fished conditions that you would not normally fish in? Would that be accurate?
Yes and no. I'm pretty committed. Like when I get my time to get on the water, I take it. And we've had so much rain here in Queensland for the last 8 months that I've almost just kept my wet weather gear on permanently. But I guess the wind and stuff was probably a bit more for me to handle than usual. And obviously you're fishing pretty rough structure as well in a system that I wasn't familiar with from the back of the boat. So that was all very different.
And dirty water, so you can't see much.
Yeah, that's right. So dirty.
There you go. And just out of curiosity, for the 4 days, would you remember which boaters you had?
Yes. I want to get the first boater right. Well, is this something that we can edit? I believe it's Steve Wilson, but I just want to make sure.
Yep.
Scott Wilson, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, so you had Scott Wilson. Who you remember who you had second?
I had John Glover. So Ethan's dad, who won the non-boaters in the first comp.
And is in the hot there in the race for AOY himself and Nathan Booth.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Oh, very good. All right. So in terms of you'd already fished 4 days on the system by the time you led into the Saturday and Sunday, or at least 3 days. What did you have prepared for the fishing Saturday? What did you have tied on?
Yeah, so by Saturday, I hadn't had much luck on crabs, which is probably what I thought I'd have the most joy on. And because I took my own tinny to the system, I pre-fished it before the first comp and figured out a few ways of getting onto the fish that I realised were pretty redundant when you're on someone else's boat and they decide to fish differently to you. So Scott put on a bit of a clinic in terms of plastics fishing, particularly grubs. And so I'd paid a lot of attention to his technique. And so I had a few grubs tied on. And then John fished similarly, was really good with his grubs, but through fishing with John, I'd kind of tried some Daiwa prawns, the 2.35 inch prawns. And so they were part of the arsenal as well. I had a crank there ready to go, but I hadn't really used cranks at this point, although I did use them at later in the comp.
Okay, very cool. All right, so leading into Saturday, the weather's all fined up and it's got nice again. Who'd you go out with it and how'd your day kind of start?
Yeah, so I headed out with Paul Langley or Langers. He has an awesome boat and is a great guy. So yeah, we're sort of having the sort of yarns on the boat that I'd usually have with my mates during a day on the water. And that made it just for a relaxing, enjoyable day, which was cool.
Cool. And in terms of catching fish, did you start to get them early or did it take a while?
Yeah, so I think we were boat 26. And so while most of the field turned left heading out of the marina, I think Paul was umming and ahhing about where to go and decided to go right, maybe because so many boats did go left. So I knew we'd be going and fishing the wall. Turned out to be a really great call by him. So we had a section of the wall to ourselves. We were both fishing crabs. He put me to shame with his crab fishing technique. I'd swear, like, as a non-boater, crabbing a wall, you have as even a chance as your boater does. It's kind of the dream scenario. Yet he was absolutely banging them, and I only managed to get a couple of small ones, although I did put one legal tar one in the bag, which was good. That's
a good start to the day. You only got to get 3, so getting one's pretty decent.
That's right. Yeah. It was a bit of relief to get one in my bag, although that was a consistent theme for all the days. I think I got one in my bag early and then just couldn't find the rest until late.
Right. All right. So then after you left the wall, where'd you head off to?
So from there, it was about 8:30 at this point. So Langs had filled his bag and he can tell you about how that went. It was pretty impressive to see. But yeah, from there, I kind of left feeling like maybe I'd missed an opportunity because I had so many good fish, but I'd made a point of saying to myself that for these ABTs, because they were my first, that I'd go into it with zero expectation around results and just try and put in 100% effort. So keep my lures in the water as long as possible and pay attention to what the guys were doing and just try to adapt as I went.
Yeah.
So I didn't let that thought hang around for too long. He said he had a bit of a milk run where he'd managed to fill bags on previous days. And so a few of them had boats on them. The ones that we did pull up on didn't quite fire. And then a little island down the back. I don't know what it's called. He'll be able to tell you. But we did about 2 laps of that with hard bodies with no joy. And I should clarify that I don't know Forster very well, so I can't really describe these places. He'll do a better job of that. But I was mostly just happy to be flying around Forster in his 110 kilometre an hour Stratos.
Right. Wow. And like we said, better weather. Like you'd been flogged the first couple of days.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Spirits are much higher.
Very good. All right. So you've done a couple of laps. You must be getting on towards 11, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'd guess so. I'd guess it was around 11. We eventually pushed back down the front and tried some trawlers. I think there was sort of some rocky banks jetties the fishermen caught there, and again, just couldn't quite find them. And to Langer's credit, I have a feeling he was trying to suss out some spots for the next day, but also was just trying to get my bag for me, which was really nice of him. And by this point, it was actually probably closer to 1 p.m.
Ouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ouch. Okay, so you still got one at 1 o'clock, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
All right. So there must be a flurry at the end here somewhere.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, I probably should have been more worried at this point, but on my second day of the first comp, John had kind of kept telling me to persist, my boater, and I think I got my second fish at like 1:33 p.m. or something, because I filmed most of my comps on a little action camera, so I got the timestamps, and it was only 1:25, so I had heaps of time on my sleeve. So
That's right. All right. What'd you have on when you started to get these fish in the bag?
Yeah, so we unknowingly pulled up to a similar spot to where I had got those fish laid on the previous comp day. And so I pulled out a pretty heavy setup. It was like a TD0, like 2 to 5 kilo rod, pretty heavy line, 12-pound leader, and just had that Daiwa prawn on it, which had worked well for me. And it was proper fish extracting gear, but it was also going to give me the confidence to cast into some pretty scary spots and just know that I could get the fish out. And so, yeah, it was about 1:27, hooked up. It was undersized. 2 minutes later, hooked up again, another one that's undersized, and like, what are you doing, mate? Like, get illegal in the boat. And yeah, it was about 2 minutes later. I'd kind of been working it erratically across the top of some shallow racks, dropping it down the front, and got a good hit and got my second legal in the boat, which is good.
Very good. And did you use the net or just pole them in?
Just poled it in, yeah. Paul was pretty quick on the net, actually. I didn't even see him move, and he was there with the net ready to go, and I was like, I'm poling it. Got him straight in. So, and yeah, it was a couple of casts later. Got my bag. That was a 26 tipper. And then it must have been about 10 minutes later, I got a little upgrade, and that was us done for the day.
Right. Well, that was good. So you got to get rid of the 26 tipper, which is nice.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you ended up with, I think, 1.29. Where did it have you overnight?
11th, which gave me a very clear goal for day 2, which was just to try and knock one person off and get into the top 10 for a badge. But yeah.
Exactly. All right. Very cool. Sunday morning, who'd you head out with and what'd you get up to?
Headed out with Dave Yule. We started down the front. We were sort of moving around the paddock and couldn't really get anything going. We saw some other boats there, and they didn't seem to be really getting much either. So it was probably about 9 a.m. we started to move further up the system, and we moved to a bank that looked similar to where I'd got them the day prior, even though it was a completely different area. There's these long PVC floating racks that you get sometimes. And Dave cast up to one of them and got a decent fish out. And the moment he had his fish in the boat, I cast a few feet past where he had and got one out myself. And that was... This time I was fishing slightly lighter gear because it was calmer and it was clearing up that slight bit. So I'd gone to a lighter in feet with PE 0.6 and 4-pound leader.
Yeah, okay. So a bit lighter, a bit more finesse. So one in the well relatively early?
Yeah.
All right. Same story?
That's right. This story doesn't end the same way. So that was about a 400-gram fish, which was good. We fished there for about 40 minutes working our way along the bank and didn't find any more fish. So that was actually as far as Dave had fished up the system for the previous comp days. And so he decided we'd go on a bit of an adventure and headed further up the system, which turned out, again, to be a really great move. So for most of the morning, we didn't really see any other boats. We saw Steve Morgan at one point. So if you're watching his live stream, we were probably in a similar area. And we were fishing this area that was just like, it felt like a never-ending flat. So off the channel, it dropped down to about 60 centimetres of water, and it just felt like this never-ending flat to get out to an edge. And it was just so calm. Water was pretty dirty, but just really calm. And it reminded me of a bank that I'd seen Morgo fish in a previous stream that was on the mid-north coast as well. And he was using aquas, which I'm a Queenslander. I love my aquas. So...
Yeah, fair enough.
Chucked one on as well.
And that was able to produce some better results?
Yeah, so originally I had like the Van Fook size 1 worm hook, which is a heavier gauge hook and usually works really well to get a good sink rate with the aquas. But because there was so much fresh, it was sinking really quickly. went over to a thinner gauge hook, one of the Gamakatsus, and it was, when I stopped the aqua, it was sinking down like a feather would in a cartoon. Like, it was just a perfect side-to-side sink.
Oh, so good.
And saw this like spindly snag, skipped it right up the back, worked it a couple of times, and every bit of me wanted to just bring it a little further out so that I had the advantage over the fish if they grabbed it. But I resisted the urge, let it sink into this like snag of doom, and then got crunched and got the fish out. And that was about a 500-gram fish. So
nice. Okay. So you've got about 900 grams in the well. What time is it, you reckon?
I actually don't know the answer to that one. I'd imagine it's probably about 10 a.m., 10:30 by this point.
Okay. So plenty of time.
That's right.
All right. Where'd the next one come from?
Yeah, so Dave actually figured out a bit of a pattern with isolated structure that had flow on it, where there was almost like one fish sitting on each bit of structure. And so he was getting one fish off each bit of isolated structure on these flats. And I did my best to cast in there after him, but we could only get one fish off it.
Yeah, right.
I actually went down to like 3 pounds straight through on a regular taper in feet and one of the Daiwa rolling cranks, and thought I'd hooked up to the dream fish, which turned out to be a 80 centimetre flatty. So that was never been so devastated to get a big flatty.
Yeah.
And
ouch.
Yeah. Dave just kept repeating that pattern until he had about 3 or 4 fish in his bag, which was cool to see. But in the distance, there was some sort of racks that we were sort of drifting towards. He got his 5th fish as we approached the racks, and to his credit, straight away went, right, I've got my bag up the front. We've got to get your bag. And there was this like broken oyster lease thing. I don't know what it was. Some sort of Mad Max contraption hanging out of the water.
Yeah, right.
He got a fish, and while he was processing it, I actually had a fast dash clip on and switched over to the aqua because I thought if I waft an aqua past that, it's going to get hit. It didn't.
Yeah.
Quickly switched over to a rolling crank and worked it almost through the exact same zone and got hit. And got my 3rd fish, which gave me my bag.
Very good. So first comp, full bag, both days. Pretty good.
Yeah. I was pretty stoked. Yeah, it's such a good feeling.
That's good. All right. And after that, was there more fish after that?
Yeah, I think we repeated a similar pattern once or twice. So I think I got a minor upgrade, but that was me done for the day.
All right. In terms of the comp, it sounds like you definitely ran 4 pound, 3 pounds straight through. What was your heavy rig?
That's actually a mystery setup. So it was I rated my mate's reels. So I've got a mate called Branny that's got a connection with Daiwa. All of his gear is kitted out Daiwa, and I knew I was probably short a few reels. I had some nice rods sitting there, but I just went and rated his kit, and I picked up a TD Black 3000 that he wasn't sure what pound line was on it. We guess it's probably around 12 to 15 pound maybe.
Yeah, okay.
And so I just thought it might come in handy around the racks, and it ended up being really helpful on that second day in particular. But yeah, I run mostly in feets.
Yeah.
1S, couple of Zs. Yeah, love using them.
Very good. All right, mate. I reckon for your first comp, first couple of comps, that's a pretty good result and a pretty good rundown. Is there anything else we need to cover on the fishing before we move off?
No, just a big thank you to all my boaters on the fishing front. All of them taught me something different throughout the 4 days that I was on the water, and all of them were super accommodating and made for great days on the water and on the boat. So little shout out to the fishing front.
Very good. All right, mate. For coming third, what do you get to take home?
So I got the Cranker pack, which has a bunch of crabs and a few cranks and vibes. It was the pack that I'd said if I could win a pack, I'd love a Cranker pack. So,
very good. Before we shoot off, mate, is there anyone else you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I'd love to say a big thank you to my incredibly supportive fiance. So she always supports all my hobbies, and the stuff that she knows keeps me happy and gets me out of, the busyness of life. So a huge thanks there. I guess comps are a big commitment, and I also do a fair bit of filming and that sort of stuff. So yeah, she's supported me the whole way, which is huge. And then I've got a little fishing crew at home that I might give a shout out to, Branny, Luke and Lane. Branny was the one that lent me all those reels, and they were instrumental in how I went. So thank you to him. Steve and Nicole for running the comps and making it super welcoming for newbies like myself. And I have to thank you as well for this podcast and everyone that's been so generous in sharing their comp experiences, because it helps get my brain ticking over. I definitely use it as a resource when I was approaching these comps. And yeah, it's just, again, it's like the perfect escapism from the day to day to just feel like you're having a fish with whoever's recounting their story and tales during the comps. So
That's awesome, mate. I appreciate that. Mate, the other thing I wanted to mention before we do shoot off is, mate, you got a little YouTube channel going on there with a couple of videos that I really like. So do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So again, bit of a creative outlet. The channel's called Moment of Stoke. And if you're on YouTube and you look up Moment of Stoke Bream, you should get a few videos pop up. But yeah, I've actually got one video out there talking about Australian bream comps, and I've filmed all of these comps, so I'll eventually put those edits together. Yeah, again, that's just a little bit of a creative outlet for myself, but I also find the content that other fishers make as a real nice escape and a way to feel connected with fishing and being on the water in the environment when you're stuck at home or commuting between work and whatever else. So yeah, giving that a crack and putting some effort into that to hopefully make some enjoyable videos for people.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on. Also, thank you for being part of the collective. Yeah, hopefully we get to speak to you again soon.
Yeah, that's right. Collective member, getting a result. Say that proud.
Absolutely. We had a good number of them now. All right, mate. You have a good night.
Yeah, thanks, Stevie.
All right, so up next in second place in the non-boated division, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 1.680, backing it up on the Sunday with 3 fish for 1.585, giving him a total of 6 fish in total for 3.265, and second place by just 20 grams. I've got Lance Marsh. Welcome back to the show, mate.
G'day, Andrew. Thanks for having me, mate.
Mate, like I said there, mate, 20 grams, a very, very tight finish again for you.
Mate, that's sufficient, isn't it?
It is. It is. It shows you how critical those little upgrades are.
Yeah, I don't know about Morgo's scales, mate, in that wind.
Fair enough. That's probably the reason.
Yeah, I can't blame the wind for the second one, but I could the first one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, mate. Well, look, tell us. So you were up there for the 2 comps, so you'd already been on the water for 3 days. Tell us about pre-fishing and what you did to get ready for the comp.
Oh, look, yeah, the whole family went down to this one at Forster, which was fantastic. Good to have the girls there. Yeah, we had a house on the river, little house in Tuncurry. We used the boat ramp over there a bit. Joel and I are very inexperienced on the waterways around there. And so we pretty much just went for a bit of a drive around and tried to get a little bit familiar with the area and with the dirty water, because we'd fished there 4 years ago. That was our first ABT.
All right.
The water was crystal clear and you can see every hole and pole.
Yeah.
Time it was filthy and you couldn't see a thing until you're on it. So totally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just had a bit of a drive around, just navigate, put some trails down on the chart so we didn't get lost. And yeah, that was about it. We caught some good fish around the racks, nothing, but the numbers were there. And like I said, it was our first 4 years ago exactly, was our first ABT at Forster.
Yeah, very cool.
For one. And double donutted. So look, we caught and we were quite happy about that. Yeah, it was all a bonus from there.
100%, 100%. Now, for anyone that doesn't know, you fish with Joel McKenzie, who I think's your son-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you guys just purchased a boat. Now, tell me, last year, I think, did he put the boat on a sandbar in Forster?
No, he didn't. No, he's very careful when I'm in with him.
Yeah, right, okay.
No, weren't doing anything silly, mate, but it would have been quite easily done, I can tell you that.
Absolutely, absolutely. With the current and the wind that you had up there and no visibility, it was definitely a possibility.
After the first comp, mate, it was like with the gale warning and the rain, and like I said, I've never been so cold in my life. So, yeah, it was. The second comp was absolutely bloody beautiful, to tell the truth.
Right. Well, there you go. That's a big turnaround, mate.
Yeah.
All right. Let's roll into comp day, mate. Who'd you get for an angler, and tell us a bit about your day?
Look, I got Dave Ewell from Victoria down in Melbourne, and I fished with Dave at Hawkesbury. He's a lovely bloke, mate. He's got a big boat with all the gear, big T-top centre console, so that would have been bloody great the first comp, I tell you, something to hide behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't need it this time, but Dave put on the pizza again for me for lunch.
Pizza.
He has pizza oven, a little pie oven on board, and the fridge freezer. He's got everything, mate. But he did tell me when we lined up on the Friday night that he had no plans. Being from Victoria, he was a bit like me, a bit lost in the place.
Yeah.
But, mate, we just went fishing, and I think that's when you actually do better. When you don't have a plan, you just go, right, let's go and try something and see what happens. And, mate, I had a fantastic day with Dave.
Yeah, okay.
I think I had my bag on board within an hour, basically, and it just upgraded half a centimetre at a time from there. Just a really fun day. It was good. Dave tried various places, different situations in the in the arena, and we caught fish pretty much everywhere. It's just that we didn't catch too much in the way of big fellas, but
yeah, wow,
great day, really good day.
Yeah, and from your first ABT just 4 years ago, which is not a long time, from no fish at all to bagging out in the first hour or so, massive difference.
Yeah, mate, and I think it was just more attitude for me. Like I couldn't do any worse, you know what I mean? And I was just throwing it. Every pole that we come to, I had to throw at it, and luckily it was high tide, and there's a fair bit underwater, and which when we come back to these places later on at the lower tide, I would not have thrown into where I had. I'd have seen what it was like. You know what I mean? I would have scared myself off because I'm thinking I'll be rigging up all day here. I threw at every pole, every little bit of structure I could see, and the fish were hungry first up on that Saturday morning, and yeah, did really well. Yeah, I quite easily could have sat down at 10 o'clock and just eat pizza and watch Dave fish. You know, it was one of those days where it was relaxed, and yeah, we had a good day.
Very nice, very nice. What was your lure of choice?
Mate, I don't know. I got nothing special, really. I just tie on that Z-Man prawn. It's just the green, everyone used the grub, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Grub, and I thought, well, I just want to do something a little bit different, and tied on the prawn. And it's been my go-to for a long time now. I've done pretty well with it. And, same with the Hawkesbury. When I fish with Dave, I use the same thing and little motor oils. Yeah, it worked really well. Yeah, couldn't complain. Just put a bit of scent on it. A reasonably heavy jig head, like 20th maybe. In the current, maybe a 6th. But, just nothing special. They were just, I wasn't doing any action or anything. It was just drifting along with the tide. And, I just feel that plunk that you like to feel.
Yeah.
Because it was Forster, I was a bit intimidated. So I put 6 pound leader on.
Yep. Went crazy.
Instead of the 4, yeah.
Yeah.
So I upped my game by 2 pound. Like I said, when I come back later on and saw these places at low tide, I've gone, well, maybe I should have put 10 or 12 on.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you lose much gear while you were fishing there?
No, not really. Bugger all. Yeah, I don't know whether it was just enough tide there, enough drift, whatever, just to keep it in that top, 10 to 20% of the water column. And I was just letting it drift down, so I wasn't too concerned about what it was doing. But just every pole, the poles are only, 5 metres apart, and I was just making sure I was hitting each one of those and just throwing past and letting it drift past. And if you went another metre past them, you would have been on the rack somehow, So it's just that little buffer zone in between the rack and the pole that I was fishing, and they were there, which was good.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, well, mate, for the day, you ended up with, we say 1.68, which I think would have had you probably in first. Is that right? Overnight?
I think I was in second by about 20 grams as well after the first day.
Oh, there you go. So, well, good start. Tell us about day 2, mate. Who was your draw?
Yeah, Paul Langley was my jockey for the day.
Yeah, nice.
With Paul as well, down in Victoria. He's a lovely young fella. Big motor on his boat now, so she gets up in boogies too.
Yeah.
With blokes like me, and it needs a bit more horsepower. But, yeah, it's a lovely boat. And just change of plan, really. Just went down and fished the seawall for the first maybe hour and a half while the tide was still up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was using the heavy gear again, the 6 pound and the same prawn that I used. And a couple of grubs this time that Judd Kirkland gave me.
Oh, yeah.
Juddy's my go-to man for that from like the Hawkesbury South. Like, he's my man. So he said, no, this is what I use down here, and I give it a crack. And it worked really well as well.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's just the prawn, 6 jig head, and just letting it flow, like chuck into the wall and letting it drift down, letting them do their thing, mate. First cast was a reasonable flathead. I thought, bloody hell, it's like when you start out with a flathead, you think this is not my day. But then a wurra, I think we call them at Coffs Harbour, a wurra, one of those kelp fish. Yeah, and I went, bloody hell. But yeah, then got a good brim. I think I got 2 or 3. I got my bag pretty much one after the other down there. Paul lost a ripper. He was crying. He told me he was crying under his glasses. He was crying. And I think I might have done the same thing too, but they just did us on the day. But yeah, no, we had a really good start down there until a lot of the guys, other guys, sort of moved into his spot, and some of the locals as well.
Yeah.
Dewey gear. But yeah, very popular spot in Forster, I'm guessing. But first time I'd been there, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, so it sounds like, in the deeper water, 6 is a decent amount of lead, but obviously enough to get you down into the strike zone.
Yeah, and look, if you didn't sort of keep on it a little bit, you were snagged. You just got snagged. And I think I did more re-rigging there with Paul in the first hour than I did for the whole day with the day before.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. A lot of tide. That's a skinny little mouth of that system there, and a lot of water moving in and out of it. So you just got to fish appropriately, mate.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And look, if you're not getting snagged up, you're probably not going to get the bites. So you did pretty well in that first little while.
Yeah, look, the prawn worked really well. I had crank and crab rigged up, and a few other different things, and I don't think I used them all day. I just took them along for the ride.
Yeah, nice. All right. What did you do after the wall? Did you head off away from there?
Yeah, well, you wouldn't believe it. We went to exactly the same spot that Dave took me to the day before, just straight up onto the racks. Yeah, straight at where the oyster blokes do their work in their sheds. Straight there. And yeah, we did catch fish there, but I think the time of day was different to when I was there with David, and it was more exposed. I think Paul got his bag there, but I already had my bag, so wasn't too concerned.
Yeah.
We just fished there and a few edges, didn't get anything really to put in the bag. I pretty much had the same bag from when I started till the end of the day.
Yeah, right. Okay. So the wall was the go-to spot for you.
Yeah, fish that didn't happen, basically. So, but really happy with what I had.
Yeah, definitely. Well,
system of fish for 6 days. So, yeah, no, really happy to have those fish. 6 fish on board. The first comp this year where I've had my 6 fish in to weigh in.
Yeah.
So I was just happy, mate. Just really happy.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, like we said, mate, it brought you back with a total bag weight of 3.265 and just 20 grams off the pace.
Yeah.
Pretty good going.
Yeah. Was a lot more. I was a lot better than I was expecting, mate. So, yeah, no, I had bumped that week. Really good.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, look, for coming in second place, mate, what did you get to take home?
Got to take home the Daiwa pack again. Yeah, I think about $500 worth of lure, hard bodies. So there's my supply again for another couple of years. That's
awesome.
So, yeah, no, could never complain about that. Thanks to everyone at Daiwa.
That's it. And you would have got the second place badge. I'd imagine you're getting a few of those.
And the badge. I've got a couple of second places now.
Yeah. Very good. And a first.
And I've got about 6 sevenths and stuff like that. But honestly, it's just, I think I've told you before, it's more the journey for me, not the holiday. You know what I mean? Like, it's all about going to these different places, meeting all the people that I've got to know fairly well now. It's a really nice crew. Most of the boaters I've been with now. Yeah, it's just, that's about it for me. Plus, Joel's boating now.
Yeah.
So, a bit of company for him, and we share the costs.
Sounds like a great plan. All right, mate. Well, then, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, Joel and family always look after me, mate. Yeah, Nicole and Stephen, they do a wonderful job with these comps. A lot more behind the scenes goes on than we know about. And to Mark Street, congratulations, mate. We're all fairly emotional for you that day when we found out your situation. I don't think there was too many dry eyes in the place there. Really stoked for him to take that out. On one hand, a little bit pissed off, but
we always want to win, mate.
but no, it could not happen to a nice bloke. I'm so happy for him and the other guys. Look, my boaters, Paul and Dave, thank you very much. Can't thank you enough. And all the guys that I had the comp before, it was really good experience this time.
Yeah. Very nice, mate. All right, mate. Well, look, that's fantastic. Look, congratulations again.
Thanks.
And we'll talk to you again soon.
Good stuff. Hope so.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Okay, so coming in first place in the non-boater division, we have an angler dropping 3 fish for 1.575 on the Saturday, backing it up on the Sunday with a bigger bag of 1.710, giving him a total weight of 3.285. And first place, I've got Mark Street. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you, Andrew.
Mate, what a great win there by just 20 grams.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't much in it. Yeah, a couple of oyster shells out the back end and she's all over.
That's exactly right. Very narrow margin, but it doesn't matter because a win's a win.
No.
Mate, tell us, so I know you fished the comp leading into it, so you'd been on the water for a few days. Did you end up pre-fishing on the Friday?
No, we never got up there until Tuesday evening and sort of got booked in and went to the briefing and then back to the unit, got ready for the Wednesday fish. And then like Wednesday and Thursday was raining and it was blowing the gale, and then, standing up on the back of the boat for 7 hours each day, and then, sort of didn't really want to go pre-fishing on the Friday. So, sat at home and organised the gear and just generally sat back and took it easy, getting ready for the Saturday.
Right. So in terms of gear then, what do you have tied on going into the Saturday? What do you have ready to fish with?
I took 4 rods with me. I had one rigged up with a soft plastic, which is a slim swim, and I had another one rigged up with a chubby Suji prawn in the shallow.
Oh, yeah.
And then I had another one rigged up with rigged up to take an aqua prawn in case we were around the mangroves. And then the other one I had I think that was a deep chubby in Suji prawn as well. So, I wasn't sure where exactly we were going to fish. Yeah. But then we had to talk to Steve on the Wednesday night. That was the first round. Yeah. We had to David Ewell, I fished with that first round. Yeah, we just got up into a bay and had a look at what sort of water was there around us. And, I done most of my fishing up there with the Suji prawn in the shallow and continued. Yeah, I used that most of the day. There was a terrible lot of structure about, like old oyster leases and timber that had come down in the flood. And I'd been talking to Adam up at fishing.com, and I got 3 new ones sent down, and I lost those in the first half of the day on all the structures. So I had to revert back to plastics after that. But I had one on long enough to catch the big one.
There you go. Oh, I think on the Saturday, was Saturday the day you fished with Steve Pryke?
Yep. Yeah, fished with Stevie on the Saturday, yeah.
And tell us a bit about your day. How'd you go?
Well, first up, we went down into the racks down there, what they call the paddocks, and that was a whole new ball game to me. I'd never fished that sort of stuff before. As I said, the tide was boring out through the fences and the poles, and the thing I found was you need to be able to cast straight. If it didn't hit at the back of the pole where the hole was in the water, you just didn't get a bite. I don't think I caught one there I don't think I actually caught a fish there until later on when we went up the river in the quieter water. But Stevie was pulling them out left, right and centre, and so I had to sit out the out to watch all that. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough. Oh, it would have been entertaining.
Oh, yeah. But, I still marvel at all the boaters, their ability to cast. They just don't miss.
Yeah. I think it's an important skill. You moved upstream then. Is that where you started to catch some fish?
Yeah, we went up onto a bank. Yeah, Stevie caught a really good one. I remember off first cast, that was off a pole on the end of the bank. then we drifted. It was about, 300-metre bank, and I got my bag down through there. One was a really nice one.
Mm.
And we went back and done it again. The fish was still there, but I was a bit more reluctant the second time. Yeah, so sort of went from there. So I struggled early, and then
Yeah, what were you getting them on the bank?
I was using the slim swim on that bank. Yeah, slim swim and a motor oil grub. Yeah.
Okay.
Cast it up as close to the trees as I could, and any bit of structure that was there, and they was climbing on those on the way down. And Stevie was using the same as well.
Okay. Did you find that you had to be really accurate with your casts?
On that bank, it wasn't so bad because it was a real shallow bank, and then came down onto a drop off. So you could sort of put it within 3 or 4 foot of the bank, and then just drag it down over the drop off, and that's where the fish was sitting.
Okay, so it's likely they were just on that second drop off.
On the second drop off, that's where they seem to be fished. That's where they seem to be sitting. Yeah.
Okay. And with your grubs and slim swims, what sort of weights were you running? Were you running heavy or super light?
Well, at first up, I was using an 8, and I was doing the same things as Steve, and he was getting fish and I wasn't, and so I backed off to a 1/16, and that worked. That's when I started to catch them. Then, on the smaller jig head.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So definitely a slower presentation was a bit better.
Yeah, especially like the water wasn't rushing as much up there. When we got down towards the end of the bank, it was starting to move heavier. But up where we started in the middle part of it, just the light jig head was plenty.
Fair enough. And did you get many fish for the day?
I probably ended up catching 8 or 9. Had a couple of other bites, but I got a nice one. Got a nice one early on the bank, and then I think I upgraded 2 times, one more time for the day. So on the Saturday. Yeah.
I reckon that's pretty good going. If you can get 2 or 3 full bags, I reckon that's a pretty good day.
Yeah, no, it was a really good, a great place to start getting the fish. Wasn't a lot of snaggy stuff unless you obviously threw it up the tree. But just getting it on that sandy drop off, that's where the fish were holding.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, look, it was enough to bring you back with 1.575, which would have had you be in 3rd or 4th overnight?
The 3rd overnight.
Okay, 3rd overnight. All right. And then on the Sunday, we basically had a Tasmanian with a Queenslander. So he went out with Drew Griffiths for a bit of a fish.
Yes, yeah, we sort of virtually done much the same as what Steve had done the day before, a different area in the paddock, but sort of same sort of fishing. And I don't think neither of us got a fish down in that area.
Mm.
It wasn't until about I was getting on. It would have been 10 o'clock, up past 10 before I caught a fish. Drew decided to go right up the river where he'd caught some good fish the day before but poles are underwater, you couldn't see them, but you had to cast into them. Lost a fair bit of gear in there.
Yeah, right.
I think Drew caught one up there, and then again we went on to another sandy bank, and I ended up catching two just legals, 226s there. So
okay.
So I had 2, and that third one always seems to be the hardest one to get.
Absolutely. The 2 that you caught, are they on grubs or slim swims?
But both of those are on the slim swims on the Sunday morning. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. How'd you grind out that 3rd fish?
We came down and fished a real current that was breaking through a part of the bank, and I think Drew caught a couple of smaller ones in that on a hard body. Then all of a sudden he just decided we'll go out to the lake for a look. Him and a friend had been out there, done a pre-fish on the Monday or Tuesday, and that was before all the wind come through because the guys weren't allowed out there because of the wind. And they marked a few fish out there in the lake. So we went out there, and when we got out there, we drifted onto the marks that Drew had put down. And I said to him then, hey, how deep's the water? And he said about 1.2. So I put the brown suji prawn on in the chubby, in the deep diver, we'd been fishing there for about a quarter of an hour, I reckon, maybe 20 minutes, and I caught a 28. So that gave me my bag. Takes a lot of pressure off. And then over the next 3 parts of an hour, probably an hour, the next two I caught were 230s. So that got rid of the 26s out of my bag. Anyway, about 10 minutes before we left had to come back to get our tag on. Yeah, the big one jumped on and that got rid of the 28. So I ended up with 230s and a 37.
Nice.
Yeah, plus a few other little ones in between. And Drew, he just kept going backwards and forwards over his school of fish. He went above and beyond for me on the Sunday. He was fantastic for me. Yeah,
that's awesome. So then it's out. So your biggest fish end up coming on the chubby.
On the chubby in the deep diver. Yeah, I was just holding the rod up because it was dead cut. It was glassed out, and I held the rod as high as I could, and I wound it as slow as I could. And you could just in that sort of feel it touching the weed, tops of the copperweed. And yeah, they started climbing on out there with that. So, but the big one I caught, I wasn't sure whether it was a touch or whether it was the weed, so I just stopped it, and it seemed like 5 or 6 seconds I held it there and then just give it a wriggle, and yeah, he jumped on and he made tracks with the barway.
Very nice, very nice. Did you get a good hook set on him? Like, did you get the hooks in, or was he pinned? Or?
Yeah, Drew missed him with the net first shot. He flew under the boat. Yeah, and then you probably hate me for saying that, and then when we finally got him in the net, Drew put him down onto the front of the boat, and Chubby fell out of him. He'd only been pinned. He pinned in the front of the net. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, if he'd have got the smallest amount of slack line, he was gone. Yeah.
He was gone. Oh, that would have been a moment.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, net shots get missed. It happens. But, yeah, it would have been disappointing.
Oh, yeah. Especially after seeing him. Like, he took off like a steam, went like a steam train, and still wasn't sure it was actually a bream or a trevally, and
yeah.
Drew seen the flash of him, and yeah, a few choice words were said, and the next thing we placed him under the boat. Yeah.
Oh, very good. But, mate, all's well that ends well, and if the hook came out, it meant you didn't have to pull it out, so that's good too.
That's exactly right. They didn't have to muck around with it in the net.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, like we said, it was just enough, like 20 grams in front, so close.
Yep.
Tell me, whereabouts in terms of the weigh-in, did you weigh in early or late?
No, we got back, I think we had 8 minutes to put our tag on. So I run up and done that, and then I went back and helped Drew with the boat. And then we went and parked up, and Drew said, I'll take mine down first and get them weighed, and then I'll bring the bag back to you. And so we were probably, pretty much back down to the last 10 or a dozen guys to weigh in. Anyway, went up and weighed him, and I knew that Lance was winning. He was in front, but Gordon Pullen, who had been leading overnight, he hadn't come in yet, and Collie Wilson was just below him. He's a great fisherman, Cole, and so they were all still out. So, I weighed my fish, and boom, I was 20 grams in front lead, and I didn't know whether to stand there and watch it or whether to go away. So anyway, in the finish, I opted to go and get my gear out of Drew's boat and get that organised. And anyway, my eldest son messaged me to say that, you've got it. And I said, no. I messaged back and said, no. I said, Gordon's not in yet, and Collie Wilson's not in. And he messaged me back about a minute later and said that Gordon was in and only had one fish, but still had coal to come. And, yeah, I couldn't keep still. And then I heard Morgo say that I think we've weighed everyone in. So I took advantage of that, and I looked at my phone, and I was still 20 grams in front. So that's when all the emotion came. Yeah, it was unreal. It was just it was awesome.
Yeah, it's a great one. Very good. All right, mate. Tell me, what did you get to take home for the win?
The big wooden trophy, of course, which was lovely, and I got 2 huge packs of surface lures, deep diving lures, and shallow divers. in the other packet there was fluorocarbon line. I don't know how many packs of jigs there are in there. There's probably 30 packets of jig heads, and then another assortment of lures. I'm not sure how much it would be, but it was, yeah. I shouldn't have to buy a lure for quite a while.
That's very good. And I assume that was the Daiwa pack?
Yeah, that was the Daiwa pack, and obviously the patch, number one patch. Yeah.
Yeah, you got the patch and a ticket to the grand final to be held in Victoria somewhere.
Yeah, I think the first day is at Bem River, and then the second day is at Marlow, for the non-boaters. Yeah, so you're looking forward to that. Haven't fished Victoria before. So.
Yeah, I think that'll be a special event, I reckon.
Yeah, really looking forward to that.
Very good. All right, mate, look, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, just all the guys that I fish with. I've met some wonderful people, made some great friends. So shout out to all of those. If anyone's listening, special mention to my family for their support. It just doesn't get done without that. And Steve and Nicole for putting it on. Without them guys, us guys don't get to do what we do.
Very good. That's a great story. Congratulations on your win, and good luck in the grand final. Hopefully you come up trumps there and we can have another chat.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Thank you.
Okay, so up next in third place, we have an angler dropping 5 fish for 3.310 on day one, backing it up on day two with 5 fish for 1.97, giving him a total of 10 fish for 5.280. And his third place in Forster this year, we've got Paul Langley. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. A bit of deja vu.
Yeah, that's it. That's it, mate. 2 third place in 2 events on the same system. How good's that?
Yeah, couldn't do that again if I tried.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. All right. So you basically, by the time you hit this comp, you'd already had 3 days on the water. Did you pre-fish?
I didn't really have any intention to pre-fish, to be perfectly honest. I brought a couple of rods with some big dew plastics and had planned on trying to chase some dew in the channel and then go and throw some big plastics in the rack for some big lizards. But obviously things changed on the first round. The weather was pretty rubbish and the arena had been closed right down. Where the second competition, they opened the whole arena up because of the weather had improved. So my plans changed and I really wanted to go and suss out the lake and knowing the pressure that had been on the system, I thought, I'd need some clean water and some different spots to play to stay consistent and in the mix.
Yeah, right. Right. Okay. So given that you went out on pre-fish and did whatever, did your plans change leading into day one compared to what you did on the first comp? Or did you go, I'm going to go back and do it again?
No, look, they did it a little bit. So obviously the tides were very different. So where in the first comp we were getting the tail end of the run-out tide, we actually were now getting the tail end of a run-out tide first thing in the morning. So we're getting the last of the run-in and start of the run-out. So it definitely meant that I had to change what I was going to do. But, yeah, got out in a pre-fish and sussed out a few things which brought out a few different options for me that I hadn't sort of even looked at or explored through the first tournament.
Yeah. Okay. And how confident were you? Like, was it like, oh, we're going to struggle, or what were you thinking?
I definitely thought I was going to struggle. I knew after so many days of so many boats sort of pressuring the same system, I didn't think that I was going to be able to back it up and sort of get a podium finish again. I thought that it was going to be challenging. I was hopeful and confident that fishing down the front and sort of sticking to my plan of trying to fish that cleaner water might refresh and sort of hold better fish where other people might have struggled a little bit. But I was just nervous that down the bottom of the system in the lake that some guys would go down there and find some unpressured fish and really bang them hard and come home strong.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting dynamic. The whole 6 days on one arena adds just a whole different twist to it all.
Absolutely. It brings spot management into the game a little bit.
Exactly. All right, let's roll into comp day. So we're now on the Saturday. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, so day one basically headed straight to the wall, just trying to fish that the last of the tide and then the start of the fresh tide. A little bit different to what I did in the first comp, though. I actually fished the other breakwall to what I'd fished in the first comp. there wasn't many people there. Most people headed straight to the lake, obviously trying to find those unpressured fish. So it was a bit of a godsend, to be honest. I was able to actually start further up the wall and then really drift down and follow the current. So whilst it was running harder, I was able to fish it pretty effectively with the crabs because I was sort of floating along. I wasn't fouling up too many crabs. I was actually able to sort of cast it in tight, slowly roll it and actually feel it rattling over all the rock and reef on the bottom. They were picking it up. So it was actually, again, like the first comp, a bit of a dream run where I was able to actually get a limit off the wall really, really quick. I think I had a full limit by about 8 o'clock again and then was work grade. So,
wow. I mean, when you do that, when you get a limit early, your day becomes just so much better.
Absolutely. It takes the pressure off.
100%. And were you fishing, I can't get a grasp on it, were you fishing the Tuncurry side or the Forster side?
Fishing the Forster side in this comp. So the first comp, Tuncurry side, right down the end, this time Forster side. So
Yeah, cool. All right, so you got your limit early. Now, you did get a bigger bag for this. I got a really good bag in terms of this comp, so 3.3. Did you get big fish early or did you have to upgrade through the day?
Yeah, no, all the big fish came pretty early. They were all pretty solid coming off the wall, which was obviously a welcome change from the first comp where I was getting smaller fish early and having to try and upgrade throughout the day.
Yeah, 100%. All right, and then after you finished on the wall, where'd you head off to?
Yeah, so I sort of milked the wall right up until the tide was flowing too hard. And to be honest, most other people had left the wall. It was only really me that was left there right till the dying days. But then wanted to go and explore the lake. Hadn't really done too well on pre-fish down the lake, tested out the flats and stuff. Didn't get a fish. Was not confident down there, but went down to the lake and just wanted to fish out Black Rock. I had got a couple of fish on the pre-fish, so I went straight to Black Rock and basically worked myself right around Black Rock, just throwing cranks right up into the weed and got plenty of fish, to be fair. So managed a couple of fish that were decent, 26, 27 forkers. So not decent, but decent enough to make the bag, but they didn't upgrade anything. So poor non-boater would have killed for him. Did manage to get his limit, so that was great. But yeah, it didn't sort of help him there that we're getting them all the way around. But
okay. And up when you were fishing up the back, were you on crabs or were you on, what were you running?
No, so just cranks, just basically working deep atomic cranks in, the ghost gill brown, pitching them up right up into the weed, have to sort of drag them through a little bit of weed. And then once they got clear, they were usually getting pretty well brained. But yeah, there's plenty of rocks that poke out around Black Rock and fish were sort of just mulling around that. And then moved out a little bit further. There's a marker that's probably about 50 metres out from the island and same sort of deal, just working around that, just rattling those cranks over the top of those rocks. And they were sort of just hitting it, that reaction bite as it was banging over the rocks.
Yeah, okay. So the same with the weed. Did you find you had to have it pretty much in the mix to get them to bite?
Yeah, definitely. Out in that clear water past the weed, it was pretty quiet. But yeah, you kind of had to be in amongst the weed and it was either you get it in there and they'd belt it, or you get it in there and you'd spend 30 seconds trying to drag it out of the weed and clear all the crap off the lure.
Yeah, okay. Very good. And after that, was that the end of your day or did you try and duck back down the wall to finish up?
Basically just ran around and did a few things that I'd found on pre-fish. So trying to fish some deeper edges and stuff like that around Wallace Island and near some of the oyster sheds. And actually it worked out to be a bit of a godsend. I went to have a look at the racks just to see if there was any water on them, and it had obviously ripped out and it wasn't fishable where I wanted to fish. So I went and fished some of the oyster sheds and some of the deeper water along some of the racks and stuff like that. And yeah, it was actually drifting down there and managed to spot some fish out wide. I was actually retying some leaders and just swung the sounder around or swung the electric around while I was poled down and spotted a school of fish that was just sitting out in the channel on the active target. And it was interesting. I actually said to my non-boater, there's fish out here, just cast out there. And sure enough, it was a cast or two later and he was pulling in a fish and it was pretty handy. So I sort of, fished along those leases and just kept that in the back of the mind and ended up working my way around and fished some other racks and it was pretty dead. Everyone was really struggling. It was pretty glassed out and that kind of done me for the day, to be honest. We sort of went back and tried to fish the bridge a little bit and it was ripping hard. Tried to fish the wall a little bit more. It was just ripping too hard, which sort of pulled us up and went in.
Yeah, right. And while you were talking then, I just looked at who your non-boaters were, and you had Drew Reid and Lance Marsh who both ranked as well, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. No, it was good to see them both up there and in the mix. And obviously having Lance on day 2, there was a bit of pressure because he was doing pretty well from day 1. So
yeah, right.
Really wanted to make sure that he got the fish.
Definitely. And coming back to the active target, it's definitely, in my experience, it sounds it's the same for you. There's times where you just look at the screen and you see something, you cast at it and you catch a fish that you wouldn't have got if you didn't have it on the boat.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a game changer, regardless of whether you're using forward mode or scout mode. I've used it down in Victoria, fishing, real deep on Goodwin Sands in that scout mode, and you can just see the schools of bait and the bream pushing the schools around, and you can get your lure into that right spot. And in forward mode, again, the same, just watching your lure drift down those poles, watching the fish sit around or just being able to swing around and see that school of fish and what sort of depth they're in and making sure you got the right presentation to really get in the right area and get them going.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you can see by the direction of your pole exactly what direction they're in. And then on your screen, you've got the markers to say, okay, it's whatever you're working in, 20 meters out or 25 meters out. And you just make an educated guess. And, often you can do it. So it's very, very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know where they are, what direction, what depth. It just makes it easy.
Definitely. All right. So on the Saturday, you brought back a great bag of 3.310, which would have had you either at the top or right at the top of the field, maybe second or third.
Yep, second, I think.
Second. All right. Tell us about the Sunday, because it looks like just based on the bag weight, you must have had a little bit of a tougher day. Tell us how that went for you.
Yeah, Sunday was definitely tougher. Just sort of, again, wanted to run the same plan. I was pretty confident the fish would absolutely replenish on the wall. So straight to the wall, which worked well. There was definitely fish there and straight away was getting fish, as was Lance. Lance was giving me a bit of an education from the back of the boat.
Nice.
But it was a little bit tougher. We had a lot more company on the wall, which sort of pinned me into just fishing the one spot, where the first day I was really able to sort of move along the wall and drift down and not pressure the same spot too much. I kind of had a boat that dropped in just below where I wanted to be and a boat that dropped in just in front of where I wanted to be. So I was on the spot that I wanted to be and where I'd got the good fish on the Saturday, but it just meant that I was really pressuring that one spot for that whole time. So made it a lot tougher. I didn't actually manage to get my 5 off the wall, and I pushed as hard as I could right till the tide was ripping too hard that it wasn't practical to fish anymore. But I just couldn't get my 5, and it definitely makes it gets in your head, it makes it harder, and you just got to try and make the right decision to fill out a limit after that.
100%. And were you just fishing a heavy crab?
Yeah, pretty much just fishing heavy crab, and when the tide was really ripping along, it was a bit harder to keep the crab down there without getting snagged up. So moved to a Z-Man grub on a 1/6 jig head just to be able to sort of keep it in the right area, get it down quicker and be able to sort of work it over. I did lose quite a bit of gear.
Yeah.
Obviously get fouled up and snagged a lot, but I suppose it was just that opportunity to try and get a couple of fish, and it paid off. And it certainly paid off for Lance. He was getting quite a few fish on his plastics.
Yeah, nice. And for yourself, when you went to the Z-Man, did you put a couple in the boat, or did you get some hookups, or how'd that look?
No, I think from memory, pretty much all my fish came on the crabs pretty early. Rattled a couple of times, but just, wasn't able to get any decent fish on the Z-Man in that instance.
Yeah, okay. All right. So you haven't quite got your limit. Where'd you head off to?
Yeah, look, on pre-fish, we fished the Coffee Rock along Wallace Lake, fishing with Z-Mans a little bit deeper. And like I said, I'd seen them on the active target. I knew that they were there. I knew they were schooled out a little bit wider. So basically, we went up there and I stopped a little bit short and fished the edge just on the other side of Wallace Island. And it didn't take too long to sort of get fish, pulled up and pretty quickly in the drift, managed to get another fish. And then as did Lance, and it just sort of came. So did that drift a couple of times. I was starting to get in my own head a little bit and sort of stressing that I needed a limit, even though it was pretty early. So I did work that bank quite a few times until finally managed to scrape in a limit and just sort of take the pressure off. Again, it wasn't a great limit. There wasn't any real good sized fish coming off there, but just sort of needed it. So I moved up to the Coffee Rock at Wallace Island. I did get one there as well before I filled the limit, but it basically all came off just that deep edge. Seaman grubs, 1/20th, just lightened it up a little bit from what I'd done in pre-fish because it was pretty glass calm and the current wasn't too hectic along there as well.
Yeah, right. And were you running the same sort of leaders as previous comp?
Yeah, exactly the same. So 6 pound, just that Yamatoyo, Chinu Harris. Find it's pretty good there. And the water being a bit dirtier, I wasn't too worried about the fish sort of being scared of the bite.
Yeah, right. And then in terms of the rest of your day, was that about it or was there anything happen late?
Yeah, no, I suppose that was where the bulk of the fish came, but I still had that plan to head down the front. I was really hoping that regardless of the run, I might be able to just go to the wall. I didn't think too many people would fish it on the run. I knew everyone had moved off it early, so we went back there. It didn't play out so well for me. I wasn't able to get another upgrade. Did miss a couple of opportunities, but we got there and Lance got one last good upgrade. I think it was 1 centimetre upgrade. So I was pretty stoked for him. He was pretty happy as well, and it was great to see him get a limit. So. That pretty much done us. We ran out of time from there. I think one other boat came down to check out the wall right at the end, but that basically, to be honest, I thought I'd blown my chances. It was a pretty small bag. I knew it was a small bag and I'd missed my chance not being able to get them early. So, but, I was happy to sort of get a limit, 5 fish on all 4 days of tournament. I was pretty happy and, I thought it would be enough to likely keep me in the top 10.
Yeah, well, clearly it was much better than that. And 3rd place in 2 events in a row, like a pretty good running.
Yep, stoked.
Very good. All right, mate. So for this one, what do you get to take home for this one?
Yeah, so same as the first event. So pretty similar numbers for both events, which meant it was $1,200 again, 3rd place, and again was lucky enough to get the Merc bonus 3rd place and another $75 on top. So
right.
$1,275 total, made it a bit over $2,500 for a week's work.
Yeah, no, it sounds pretty good to me. And probably $400 in crabs and you're all good to go.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, to be honest. I didn't lose. I think I lost 3 crabs for a total week. I only got dusted once in the second comp, and that was on the wall pretty early, and it was a good fish, and I was pretty devastated. And, yeah, I think I pulled the hooks on one, but that was it. I didn't really miss too many chances. Didn't lose too many crabs either. So.
Oh, that's pretty good going. All right, mate. Well, look, last thing before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to? Yeah,
definitely. I want to thank my wife and family, obviously, for the support. And it was great to have the kids and a bit of a fan club and cheer squad coming along. Had some friends and a couple other kids that came along and were keen to see the fish and see me weigh in. So thank you for that. Obviously, Lawrence again for quality gear, Spotter Sunglasses, JML Anglers Alliance, for the great quality lures that they distribute, and also Mad Keen Clothing. It was a cold morning and it was great to be rugged up in some good gear.
Very good, very good. Feeling warm and looking good. How good's that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. All right, mate. Well, look, congratulations on another great competition. And yeah, hopefully we get to have a chat again soon.
Yeah, can't wait. Look forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate. And up next in 2nd place, we have an angler dropping a 5 fish for 2.710. Backing it up on the Sunday with 5 fish for 2.8, giving him a total bag weight of 10 fish for 5.510. And 2nd place, I've got Chris Smith. Welcome to the show, mate.
Thanks for having me.
No worries at all, mate. Mate, a supremely consistent competition for you.
Yeah, not much changed over the course of the few days.
Yeah, well, like we said, just pre-recording, you fished the comp, so you had a bit of kind of pre-fishing for this. How was your week?
Honestly, it all got set up on the pre-fish day on the Monday.
Right. Okay.
Being fairly local to Forster, I've fished it a lot, especially up the rivers, and I think I might have fished like 3 spots where I knew there was fish, Like I knew where they should be. I got fish in most of them. And then it was about 11 o'clock on the pre-fish day. I just went and fished somewhere completely random.
Righto.
And I happened to fish that spot every day of both tournaments and got a bag off it every day.
Wow.
Which, yeah, like I've never even fished this one rock wall. And, yeah, it produced every single day.
Oh, mate, that is awesome. How good's a pre-fish?
Oh, unreal. Like, we didn't even pre-fish the Friday for the weekend tournament just because we wanted to leave them alone. Like they were doing their thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, tell us. You'd fished all week, so you'd been through some bad weather, and I'm told Saturday, Sunday, it turned out a little bit nicer. Tell us about how Saturday started for you.
Saturday went straight to a rack, about one of the highest sort of racks in the system. And I think I might have got 3 fish off it.
Right.
Just on Kadashis, like throwing them into the rack, over the rack, every which way, getting the boat in there sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, got 3 or 4 fish off there and then went to my spot up the river, and I think I ended up getting a bag off that on the first day.
Okay.
And then, yeah, that was about it.
Well, tell us about the racks. So are you casting like along the racks, like between the racks? Are you casting across them?
No, across them.
Across them?
Absolute suicide is what it is.
Okay. And so what sort of gear are you using to pull them out?
That was just a braid leader, 6-pound braid, 8-pound leader, just standard sort of stuff. But I think I was pretty lucky. The way it was set up, there was two just like rails between us in the boat, and then the inside rack was an old abandoned rack that's all sort of fallen down. So you can imagine it's all just broken timber, bars covered in oysters.
Yeah.
But the 2 racks between us were fairly clean. So the odd fish that did make it under there, you could still pull them out without breaking them off, sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Like, lost a few, but it was not as nasty as where the fish actually were sitting.
Yeah, definitely. It's still pretty hairy stuff when you're trying to get them over the top of stuff. And 8-pound leader's decent, but not heavy.
No, probably not as heavy as you should be using. But I mean, I think I probably pulled hooks more on fish than actually got me in the racks and broke me off.
Yeah, okay. And with the Kadashis, I think they come with BKKs. Are you leaving them on? Are you upgrading hooks or doing anything with that?
No, just straight out of the box. Some of them weren't lasting that long, to be honest. Just tie them on and throw them in there, and I couldn't get the boat in there or anything to get them off once they were properly snagged. So so you go through a few, but then you pull a good fish out. Yeah,
definitely. And look, your bag was like 2.71. Were they all sort of 500 grammers, or do you have any standouts in there?
Saturday, there was not really. I might have had one or two sort of bigger fish, but most of them were around that 27 fork.
Okay.
Like I probably had a bag of that most days, and then, you get 1 or 2 bigger ones, but nothing. I got a good one on Sunday, but that was really the only massive fish.
Okay. And back on Saturday, so after you left your racks, you went up to your rock wall. What were you, or your wall or whatever it was, what were you throwing there? How are you targeting them?
So up there, the water was still like brown flood water. There was branches floating down the river. It was proper flood water. I was using the Spike 44.
Okay.
And the wall, it was sort of a weird setup. Some of the bottom went from like 1 meter to 3 meters deep, and the fish were grabbing it right as you're pulling it out of the water, like at the rod tip. Yeah, I don't know whether they were onto the vibration of it or maybe a little rattle in it or something, but yeah, they were just sort of like you had to do a really like cast it as far as you can. This was on the 4-pound straight through stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
So just cast as far as you can up the river, wind it along the wall, and they were either eating it off the wall, like as you'd expect, or like 3 metres from the boat to the rod tip.
Wow.
Right as that lure's coming up out of the water.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm not sure why that would happen. Hey.
No, it's still got me. Like, I've had 1 or 2 fish do it over the years, as you do. But yeah, these fish were like probably half the fish I caught up there were, your lures in the middle of the water column coming up to the boat, and they were grabbing it.
Yeah. Wow. See, that it makes you wonder. Okay, were they following it, or were they having trouble?
I still haven't. Like, there was the odd fish where you cast it way up into the rock wall, like you wind the handle 5 times and they're on.
Yeah.
That fish is obviously hunting along the edge of the wall, and you've just landed it right where he was.
Yeah.
But the ones that were eating it near the boat, I still don't know what they were doing.
Maybe they were having trouble, like you said, locating it. So if you land it on their head, obviously they're going to grab it. But if they can't find it, it's taken them a while to actually get to it, given the colour of the water.
Yeah, I think there was definitely something like that. They weren't seeing it, put it that way. The water was really dirty. So it's either a little bit of a rattle or the vibration, or just something moving through the water that it took them a bit longer than normal to find it.
Yeah.
Draw them up off the bottom for it, something like that.
Yeah, definitely a very cool observation though.
Yeah. It was, and there was a lot of fish caught like that too.
Yeah, that's very cool. Was that sort of the end of your day on that rock wall? Did you go and look around after that?
Yeah, so I went and spent about another hour on the end of Saturday. I actually went down into the paddock sort of area.
Oh yeah.
And fished around there for maybe an hour or so before we had the way in.
Okay.
Didn't catch a fish.
Right.
Yeah, I went through crabs around some racks and some poles and didn't get a touch, and neither did me non-boater. So that was the end of our day.
And that was the end of your day. Fair enough. All right. Well, there's enough to bring you back with 2.7, which is obviously a competitive bag. Tell us about Sunday. So you got a similar bag. How'd Sunday play out?
So Sunday I went straight to this rock wall because I was hoping to catch the high tide up there. Didn't get that. It was running out as soon as we got there. So I think I fished the wall twice. Like, it's maybe a 200 or 300 metre long rock wall. So went up and down it twice.
Yeah.
I think me and my non-boater both had a bag by the time we did that.
Okay.
Like, and most of the fish coming off this wall were the 27 forker size.
Yeah.
So they're not bad fish, but
yeah, they're
kind of monsters.
Yeah, they're probably 450 to 500 grams, something like that.
Yeah. So that's sort of, we had that, and then we were like, well, couldn't really catch anything bigger up there. They just seemed to be that one size fish, and that was it. So yeah, we fished there for, I don't know, it might have taken us 2 hours to do that. And then we went back to the rack where we started on the Saturday. And being the weather had calmed down, like it was a glass out basically.
Yeah, okay.
I actually snuck the boat in, like in between the bank and the first rack.
Yeah.
So we were fishing the lures a different direction to what we had been. And I got a 40 centimetre bream then.
Nice.
At about 12 o'clock, I think I got that. So
right.
He had me in under the poles and all sorts of things, and I got him out. So yeah, that was a pretty helpful fish for sure.
Definitely. And were you fishing? Were you back on your 6 and 8 pound leader at that point?
Yeah, back to the Braden leader.
Leader.
Yeah, little Kadashis, and I think I still was throwing a spike around then as well, because I don't know, those two lures just, you seem to be able to work them across the racks really well.
Okay.
I was throwing, well, previously in the week I was throwing different crankbaits, and a lot of them were just getting snagged up like pretty well straight away. But yeah, those two you could sort of just slow roll them across everything, and you could feel them hit the rack, and then they'd sort of pop up over it and keep swimming along. So they were working really good.
Yeah, no, it sounds pretty good to me. Just out of curiosity, have you done much with the rolling cranks? Ones, I think they got a little square bib on them.
Yeah, I've done a little bit, but not in the racks with them.
Yeah, okay.
No, I don't. No, I don't usually get to. Well, I just don't usually go to Forster to fish the racks much now. Living sort of north of Taree.
Sure.
We go up to like Lorreton a fair bit, but they don't have racks with like the poles and the rails on them. They're all floating.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So, yeah, you're not actually working a lure across anything.
Fair enough. So with both days, did you lose any really big fish? Did you lose anything that you're going, oh, that was pretty bad?
I don't think so. I think that 40 centimetre fish, he had me.
Yeah.
And I ended up running me electric motor into a big oyster ball laying on the bottom.
Yep.
just to get him out because the fish was going one way and me and the boat were going the other way. But yeah, no, pulled hooks on a few on the Saturday, but they still weren't, they weren't monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough.
I'm pretty sure that 40 centimetre fish was probably the biggest fish I ran into the whole time.
Fair enough. And obviously made a huge difference to your bag. Like
definitely.
Yeah. Very good. I think that covers the fishing pretty well. So you ended up in second place. Tell us, what did you get to take home for second?
I got 1,500 for second.
Yep.
And I got a 125 Mercury bonus for second as well.
Very nice. That's pretty good going.
Absolutely.
Very, very nice. All right, mate, that's a pretty good account, mate. Before we shoot off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
So definitely the family and the guys at Manning River Marine.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. Like Chris has been looking after me a little bit with lures, and I got the boat service there a couple of weeks before the tournaments because I had a few issues with it. So yeah, and it ran flawlessly over the couple of days. So yeah, big thanks to those guys.
Very good, very good. All right, mate, that is fantastic. Look, thanks for coming on the show. Hopefully we get to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so coming in first place, we've got an angler dropping 5 fish for 3.260, backing it up on the Sunday with 5 fish for 2.505, giving him a total bag weight of 5.765 kilos. And first place, I've got Mark Crompton. Welcome back to the show, mate.
Cheers, mate. How you going?
Mate, good, mate. You got there again, another round win, and you've definitely made Angler of the Year very interesting this year, mate.
That was the aim. Yeah, I was not going into the second round thinking that I was gonna be out of it. I was going into it thinking everything for the win. So it was good to come away with it. It was pleasantly surprising on day 2, especially after the lighter bags.
Yeah, that's right. And what it's done now is it comes down to the Tweed in, I'm not sure exactly when that is, but coming up soon. So
yeah, around about August, I think. So that'll be good, mate. It was disappointing for me last year. I had every single shot to win that event and hooked every single fish to do it, and I just was not on the luck side with that one. That each one of those really good fish that I hooked wiped me out. So yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, it is what it is, mate. It's like we often say, mate, to win the things, everything's got to come off. All right, so in terms of pre-fishing, you've already been on the waterway for Forster round 1, so that was 3 days plus the pre-fish. So how was pre-fish on the Friday?
On the Friday, it was instrumental for me. I went and fished the lake pretty hard. Obviously, couldn't do that on the first event because it got blocked out due to weather. There's a lot of water up there. There's a lot of water up there I haven't fished actually, which I went and fished pretty hard, and there was nothing, mate. It was just a ghost town up there. A couple of spots I found up there that I did have a couple of okay fish, but it was only ever going to be sort of, there goes the balloon. It was only going to be a couple of chances that you would get at those fish. So I used those spots pretty well during the comp on day 2, which gave me a good upgrade on day 2. But yeah, it was more of a go suss out the lake and just try and enjoy the day. I had Andrew Lazaro there with me as well. So it was good just to go for a fish with him and yeah, just try and cancel out some wasted time and space that could have been done on the lake on day 1. So
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've had some history of doing reasonably well up the back there.
Yeah, we've done well in teams events. When I won Forster previously, a couple of fish had come out of the lake that had gone in my bag, and yeah, know the place reasonably well. But the fresh water, like all the rain and everything, had just turned it into tea. So you couldn't see the bottom. You couldn't see any of the weed. You couldn't see all the normal structure that you want to be able to see. So it sort of obliterated it for us.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, let's get around to Saturday morning, mate. Tell us about how your day started. Where'd you head off to?
So Saturday morning, from memory, I started at the bridge, like sort of come out of the gates, and there was talk of I'd done well down the front on the first comp at the end of the day on the tide change. So I thought, I'll go down the front and go and have a look. And as I come out of the gates, stack of people had gone down there. I thought, well, I'm not going to go and follow everyone going down there. So I ditched that, and I looked to my left and there was no one on the bridge. So I went, well, let's go and have a play on the bridge, and fished there for a bit. Then from the bridge, I went up into the racks and basically got onto a good pattern, and I got a couple of those key fish in through the racks, and then just went through the racks pretty heavily to find better fish. I definitely got wiped out by more than I landed.
Okay.
There's a few periods there where I thought, that's the fish that's going to cost you the comp. As it were, it didn't. But yeah, sort of sussed those right out until the tide had sort of started to get out of there, and then went up into the lake and fished a few of those zones that I spoke about from pre-fish.
Mm.
And it was, I got a couple of fish out of those. I was fishing by myself. I had a spare on day one, so it was really easy just to fly about, just jet around and just sort of junk fish my way through. It's all of Forster is junk fishing, right? Like it's junk everywhere. So yeah, just sort of trying to do that through and around, but just moving heaps. And it worked good for a 3.2 bag on day one. I was stoked with that.
100%. And what were you getting your fish on? Was it a plastic spite or hard bodies or crabs? Or?
I'm just trying to think back now. So, no, most of my fish on day one come on the motor oil grubs, the bait junkie motor oil grubs.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple of fish came on bream prawns and a couple of fish come on crabs early. And then I think that was most of, Kadachi. I was chucking Kadachi a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Always do. If I'm throwing a hard body, it's Kadachi. Yeah, that sort of played the game for most of that day on day one.
Yeah, definitely. And with regards to the bite, say with you using the bream prawns, was it a subtle bite or were they belting it?
Oh, no, they're belting it. They're belting it and running off with it. You're not getting much of a shot. Any bite that you sort of get through Forster, if you lift into it and you feel the weight there, then it's a matter of milliseconds before it's doing what it can to go through the other side of the rack on you. So yeah, you got to be quick. Like I say, mate, I would have landed maybe 1 out of 10.
Yeah, really?
Fish. So yeah, maybe it might be 1 in 8. Yeah, you're getting wiped out a lot. You got to be quick at retying. That's the key. Like I've pretty much got it down now where I can re-rig an entire rod in 40 seconds.
Right.
That's the key to fishing Forster, I reckon. If you can just sit there and then have your stuff organised well in your boat, you know what's going on, you break off, straight down, re-rig fast and back into it.
Yeah.
I used to try and keep a stack of rods, but now, like, to have the same rod rigged for how I was fishing the racks, it means I've got to have too many rods on the boat because I still want to have a good selection of other combos and outfits.
Yeah.
So to have 5 spare rods all the same, all rigged, it just doesn't really work on the boat. There's too much space on the deck and you end up tangled. So I just find now if you can re-rig nice and fast, have your spools aligned there, ready to go, have all your jig heads that you use and all your lures that you are using at the ready, tie a knot in sort of 15 seconds and then get your jig head on and back in the water. That's the key for me.
Yeah, very cool. And out of curiosity, what are you 2 knots? What's your braid deleter and what's your terminal?
Braid deleter, normally an FG, pretty light FG, but if I'm going like under about sort of 5 pound, I've got my own knot, which is just like a half uni, half blood. It's a bit of a hybrid sort of, I don't know. It's probably the easiest knot in the world to tie.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't break. It's been a knot that I've tied since I was probably about 15.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's pretty simple knot, mate. Like when I say it's half a uni with 3 or 4 turns on it, and then the other side's a blood with 4 turns on it.
Yeah, right.
It's so quick to tie. Like you can tie it in under 10 seconds. It's done.
Yeah, nice.
So that's the knot that I choose for lighter line. But then I don't know if you can hear that. My young one's destroying the carp in the background there, throwing rocks at them. But
Very nice.
that's the knot that I choose. And then tying the terminal to a hook is just generally blood knot, mate.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, cool. All right, mate. You came in with a good bait. I think you might have been second overnight.
I can't remember. I might have been third.
Might have been third. Yeah, looks like Hayden was above you as well.
Yeah, somewhere
So
there.
third looks about right. All right. Sunday. So last day. So to put this into context, there's been 5 days on the water with all you guys racing around in boats. These fish have seen a few lures.
Yeah.
Tell us how your day went.
Mate, then I just tried to go and fish everywhere where I'd never seen a boat.
Yeah.
I did fish the bridge in the morning. I bagged out on the bridge, but they were all pretty basic fish. And then I was just going into zones where I knew no one could take their boat. No one was willing to take their boat to scratch it.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not bothered about scratching my boat. My boat gets dragged through anything and everything. I literally had it going between poles where both poles with nails hanging out of them were dragging down both sides of the boat. I got wedged at one stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like that's why I bought that boat. That's why I have that boat. I'm not bothered by it. I've invested in everything else that's on the boat. The hull itself, I literally do not care about. It can cop it.
Yeah.
So it's everything else on the boat that I care to worry about. My trailer, my motor, my electronics, all that sort of stuff is the stuff I feel like I need to care about. Everything else on that boat is a work ute. So
yeah, I was
being able to take it into the back of everything, mate, that's the key. That was the key.
And with the electronics and what have you, I don't know whether it's true or not, but your boat might be the cheapest part of the rig anyway.
Oh, 100%. My boat is. Yeah. I think my boat's definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. The hull on my boat is the cheapest item.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. All right. Well, how'd you go getting fish, mate? Did you get some?
Yeah. Got a lot of fish on day 2. Started in the racks early, and then I'm just trying to think now what I going back to because it's a few weeks back now. I think day 2 started in a set of racks where I'd previously done well in a grand final. I started in the back of a set of racks and then sort of worked my way out from there. It was a set of racks that I know works good on the run-in tide. And I'd sort of gone right into the back of that, in and around and pushed my way in and through a few poles and posts and got right into the backs of those where I know no one had been fishing. And then I got a bag in there pretty early, but they were all rats. And then sort of shifted and changed from there. I went back down around the bridge and had a try down there, but it wasn't very effective. And then just came back out through the racks and tried to catch the numbers to catch the size. Got quite a lot of fish, but yeah, getting those size limits or the size of the fish was difficult. So yeah, only having 2.5 kilo, I thought that was it. I might finish up maybe in the top 5.
Yeah.
So to take the chocolate was massive shock. So
definitely. And on the Sunday, was there a standout lure or something that caught the bulk of your fish?
Oh, the grub was definitely standout. Yeah, definitely standout. I think that lure is probably the best soft plastic that you could possibly ever use on the market. I think it's probably won more events in Australia than anything. When you actually think about how many events have been won on a grub, I honestly think if it didn't catch all the fish, it was one of the fish or two of the fish in every bag that people use. It's probably one of the most underrated lures there is. And I love that because I turn around and talk to other people and they're like, oh, well, you're using a grub again, like, yeah.
Then tell us then, what's your technique at Forster with that from jig head through to what you're trying to do with it?
Mate, I'm basically trying to throw it as deep and as far as I can with the correct angle. So if I do hook a fish, I can get it over a rack. Yeah. Over away from a rack or over away from a pole. It's hard, man. There's not really too much. You don't have time to give it any action. You shot them into a pole, there's not too much technique with it. To be brutally honest, when you're fishing Forster, everything's pretty shallow. So it's not like you're jig, pause or any of that. You're sort of casting it into the right spot with a key cast. You're like how tight and how precise you can cast is everything. Yeah. If you're not able to shoot it into a teacup at sort of 10 to 15 metres, you're going to struggle. Yeah. That's sort of what I'm aiming to do is hit it spot straight on the head, and then just hope for the reaction bite. And if I haven't got it, then you pretty much got to wind it up straight away, get it over the trays and back into the boat, have another shot.
Yeah, try not to hang it up on something.
Yeah, well, you only fish I think the predominant amount's only about 1 metre deep.
Yeah.
So if you're fishing like a 1/12th or a 1/20th even, it's dropping to the bottom pretty quick.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. So on the Sunday, in terms of missed fish, how'd you go there? Did you drop a few?
On the Sunday, I did. I dropped a couple of good ones that really hurt. Well, I thought it really hurt, but it actually didn't.
Yeah, not in the end.
But yeah, there were a couple there that I'd dropped early and I thought, bugger it. But not as many as day one.
No, fair enough. Oh, well, never mind, mate. Look, you came back with just over 2.5 kilos. You ended up 250 grams in front of second, which is solid. It's still pretty decent.
Yeah, it was a good lead. Like I say, massive, massive shock, to be honest. I thought there was going to be a couple of 3.5 kilo or something bigger coming in that was going to wow the crowd, but no, it was proof in the pudding of how much pressure had gone into the system, and the bags just consistently across the board got smaller and smaller and smaller as the days went on. Yeah.
All right, mate. Coming in first place, what did you get to take home?
I think I took $2,000 or $3,000. I think it was $3,000, a Mercury bonus check, and yeah, nice little bit of cream to help pay for the year, for the series.
That's it. Nice way to end the week.
Yeah, yeah. It makes it easier driving home when you've taken some money back with you. That's for sure.
100%. All right, mate. Well, look, last thing, as per usual, mate, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to or say thank you to?
Yeah, look, I think for this one, obviously I'm thank my sponsors. I thank my lovely wife and Alvie. They came up on the last couple of days. Always makes it relaxing in my mindset when they're there. But Andrew Lazaro travelled with me. He was great, created a good vibe. We had a great time together. So, yeah, a shout out to him. But I think Morgo and Nicole deserve a bit of a clap for this one. They handled what was potentially a really detrimental thing on the first comp where we got cut out of the lake. I was sitting at the briefing and I was with Tim Vickers, and we just by chance looked at the weather report and weather, and we saw a bomb notice, and I was hesitant to mention it because I thought, these poor buggers are going to have to deal with this now. And Morgo and Nicole handled it so well, and it come up trumps, right? Like it helped the entire 4-day tournament, so to speak, in a massive way. So, but they just handled it so well, cool, calm and collect, and the whole event ran great. Like we had some pretty hectic weather. It was just smooth. So massive shout out to those guys. We do take it for granted how much we have to do in the fishing tournament scene, all due to their hard work. And the thanks goes to them. Like, it's no point thanking sponsors or anything like that, because without these events, we don't have anything. So yeah. The biggest thanks goes to those guys, and it always will for me. So I'm a massive supporter of the ABT, and always, always, always will be. They're first and foremost for us, for our industry. So
fantastic, mate.
Yeah, massive thanks to them.
Awesome. Well, mate, congratulations again, and mate, I look forward to seeing what's going to happen up on the Tweed.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, we head up to the Gold Coast on Wednesday. We leave for the Open.
For Queensland.
Yeah, I've never fished that before, so that'll be a good one to go and toy around with.
Yep.
I'm just trying to fish as much as I can at the moment to keep my finger on the pulse and be connected with everything that's going on. Make sure that, all my stuff's working good, and it's been working well. So, yeah, go and do that. And then I think I've got another round at Forster in between that for the...
the New South Wales.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that'll be good fun. Back to Forster for 2 days, so we'll smash the crap out of that place again.
Very nice.
And then I'll be up to the Tweed. So hopefully by that stage I'll have put a few more hours on the new engine, and yeah, I'll be used to tying knots. You sort of, if I don't go fishing for a few days, I'll spend a good hour or two messing around with the boat, going, where did I put that last time I used it? So yeah, at least when you're fishing constantly, everything's at your fingertips and things run a bit more fluid.
100%. All right, mate. Congratulations again, and mate, we'll talk to you again soon.
Cheers, mate. Thanks, everybody. And again, if anyone's got any questions, reach out. I don't bite. I'm always happy to answer questions, truthful and honestly. Like, there's a lot of things with spots and tactics and bits and pieces. You know, you try and share as much as you can on these things, but until you actually sit down with someone, I'll take someone out on the boat and go fishing with them and show them everything that I do, because it changes every single day. It's not just, if it works on that day, that's great, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen the next time. So I'm very honest with everything that I share, but at the same time, it's also good for everybody else to reach out, say g'day, and be friendly with it, because at the end of the day, you share it all with your friends the most. So
That's right.
it's one of those things. But anyone, reach out. I'm always happy to share.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Cromo.
All right, mate. Have a good one. Cheers.
You too. Okay. So there you have it, everybody. Mark Crompton coming out on top, absolutely smashing it. We've got, like I've said before, we've got a bunch of shows already in the bank. I'm going to have to start releasing them double at a time. After next week, should be, all things being well, will be another edition of the monthly report with Brett Geddes. And then the following week, I think we're back into the Australian Open. The Queensland Open. So lots to look forward to. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're still here, thank you for hanging around to the end. I appreciate it. Anyway, look, I'll talk to you next week with Brett Geddes on the monthly report.
Thanks for listening. Hopefully you were informed, inspired and entertained. If you were able to learn something or just enjoyed listening, please consider subscribing and rate us on your favourite podcasting platform.